I'll give you my take on Toronto, and
Yeah.
I'd love for you to just hash it out with me here, because
Okay.
I've never had anybody tell me I'm wrong here. So you saw everything that happened. We had this huge work from home movement, which a lot of offices saw. Hey, we don't need as much space as we had, so we're going to let our employees work from home. I.e., they don't need to live in Toronto anymore. So you have an exodus coming from people that don't need to live in town anymore and want a bigger backyard or want more space. And then you've got offices that downsize, that added some of their commercial space. They've actually converted it into residential, or they're in the process of converting it into residential. And then this year, I think
So
we
hold
had
on
the
a second.
most.
So you are seeing that happening right now.
I've heard that there are some offices making that decision now. That's not an instant effect.
Yeah.
But I'm saying logically, we could
I
assume that would happen,
For sure.
right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then
I'm with you.
we continue on, and just know that there's like more pre-construction condos this year than I think any year maturing. Airbnb also, all these things happening at once. Airbnb not allowed to function anymore. So there's all these people putting their properties for rent. When the rent pool forces all the prices down because there's too many rentals available and no one using them. Now all those people list their properties for sale, which is what we're seeing right now in Toronto
Right.
downtown. We're seeing so many properties listed because they don't want to rent them and lose money, because the rental rate, my wife's condo, went down from 4,000 down to, she was getting told that she was going to get $2,800, like significant drop.
Yeah. That's a
uh,
huge drop.
Huge drop, right? So that's devastating for most people to get that kind of a drop. So those people, those would-be renters, those would-be landlords will turn into sellers, which is what we're seeing, and I suspect that's going to come more and more and more. um, because what's the point of being downtown when your employer doesn't require you to? You can't go to the sporting games. You can't really do anything entertainment related right now. I see an exodus, and I don't know how long it will be. I know that it will recover, but it's the question of how long. Um, and
Yeah.
and and I just, so my wife was considering selling her condo, and we went ahead and put it up for sale, and it's just it's a pickle, right? And I kept saying it to her. She's like, well, I don't want to sell it, and she didn't want to sell it, and I get it. I'm like, but here are the economic factors. Like, this is where
Right.
we find ourselves when you have too much supply and your demand is down. There's only one way for prices to go.
So is it still listed right now? The condo?
It is listed. She's very appropriately priced, tons of action. I mean, at first I think she was a little overpriced, but we just did a drop, and she got a conditional offer. So it's conditionally sold right now.
Okay. That's good.
And
Well,
yeah, let's put
oh.
this episode out after we firm up.
Okay, we'll do that for sure. Yeah, we
I
don't want
don't
to
think you're,
we don't want to
yeah,
jinx it or anything, right?
yeah,
But
we
listen,
won't jinx it.
but everything that you just said, I 100% agree with you. I
Yeah.
do. And you're seeing it. I mean, well, firsthand with your wife's condo. I mean, I don't know what the condos were going for earlier in the year, but I bet it's probably come down a bit.
I think right now it's like really just in the last few weeks as we record this that, September hit. I think really as soon as August hit, you have that classic August market where people aren't really as, focused on buying. Some transactions are closing, but everyone's at the cottage. September
Yep.
rolls around, and that market sort of picks back up. And there is still action, but there's just so much more supply. So, and I know, Gary, the market doesn't react right away. People are very
Right.
tentative to drop prices, which is why I was very adamant. I'm like, look, we need to be smarter than the market here. We need to not hesitate, because they're hesitating. We can predict that, but we need to not. Like, we need to adjust our price, make sure it's appropriate, make sure it's extremely appealing, because eventually all those other sellers, once they get fed up enough, they all drop their prices, and it seems to happen all at once. And that's when the median price point will come down significantly. And this is just how I see it, how I read it. I mean, I studied economics, and I'm very enthusiastic about real estate. And Gary, I love hearing your take on this too. I know you said you're on the same page. If you have anything to add to that, by all means, because I'm
Yeah.
curious. Like, am I right? I don't mind being wrong.
I think that you're right. I mean, I'll add a few things to that as well
Yeah.
too. Is that and I had a client who we listed his condo early this year. And this was in Scarborough. Those condos were going for $500,000 at the time. This was like around March when COVID was really kind of starting to take off. He didn't want to list it. We waited until maybe I think it was around June or so, and those condos came down in price. So validation that yes, they are coming down, and that was down. We went down to like 5 or 470,
So
and
you
we
saw
just
a
said,
drop.
oh, for sure. And then you just got to the
Mhm.
point where we're getting offers at 460, and he's like, forget it, I'm not going to sell. So that's just in
Yeah.
Scarborough. What I'm also seeing as well too, because I got a cottage up on the Kawarthas. Okay.
I've seen the stories. Yeah.
Yeah, and the condos are going, or sorry, not condo, the cottages are just flying off the shelves.
Mhm.
Now, I haven't done any analysis and looked at the numbers and all that, but me and my wife, we've been looking for another cottage because we were looking to rent it out, and they're holding off on offers. There are multiple offers. They are going over asking, and you're seeing this in the price range of around 300 to 600. They're flying off
Wow.
the shelf.
Yep.
Then talking to another agent, and again, she's out in that cottage country, so she sees it more than I do. And we had a good conversation about it. She's like, "But Gary, the interesting thing is that the cottages between that 6 to 1 million range are kind of sitting just a little bit longer." And so I think that's because there's a little bit more of a larger commitment. But then when you get into that million range and higher, they're flying off the shelf. And so because people can't go anywhere,
Yeah.
they want to still be able to entertain themselves. They still want to have a good lifestyle.
Hmm.
And so that's what you're seeing where now people just don't want to be on top of each other in condos.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, too, I think the penthouses are now the basement. I think once you get over that seventh, eighth floor, right? I think it's a little bit more difficult to sell.
Really? Oh, just because of the price point being higher
Well,
in
it's not
general?
so much the price point, it's the elevator. So now
Oh,
if you got two kids and you got groceries,
yeah.
you can do maybe 4 or 5 floors. Can you do 15 or 16?
Right. Yeah. And
Right?
I think, don't you think like just this whole experience probably made so many people who live in condos just think it one more time? They're like, wait a minute. If this happens to me again, I sure as heck don't ever want to be living in this again. Like, I want to
For
have a
sure.
backyard. Like, there was a time where I had to quarantine and I was running sprints in my backyard. Like, if I hadn't
Right.
had that, I would have like gone nuts.
For sure. I couldn't imagine being in a condo, and I couldn't imagine because some of these condos, a lot of them downtown Toronto, don't even have like a balcony. So
Oh yeah.
you're literally like just looking
Insanity.
out of a window just to try
Yeah.
and keep your sanity, right? So I think that there will continue to be a drop. I don't know how significant, but I think there
That's the
will
question,
be.
right?
Yeah. And I think what you're also going to see as well too is the commercial spaces. You touched on that, right? Where a lot of people are now looking at homes where now they can convert maybe one of the bedrooms into an office, where this now could be the way that they
Yeah.
live their life, where they work and and play at home, right?
Well, that's why we're seeing markets, all the tertiary markets, all the secondary markets outside of Toronto, just boom right now. I
Right.
mean, everybody's just realizing we don't need to be at the middle of the pond anymore. We don't need to pay top dollar to live downtown when we can have more space and get more of what we care about now. I think it's shifted the social demand for that type of product. And I think it will come back. There's certain amount, and I don't mean in general, I just mean that naturally, like you can logic your way through this as we just have, that there's going to be an effect. And the question is how severe, how dramatic, and how long.
Right.
And I think it could be a really great opportunity for those who want to get into Toronto. If the market goes down, 20%, say, like that might be the entry point that gets some people in the door when they would not have otherwise. So there's always an opportunity. And I know some people might listen and be scared. That's certainly not my intent. Um,
Right.
we all just got to make educated decisions and use our brains as to what we can see unfolding before our eyes.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, right? And it's always about just having those different exit strategies, not speculating and
Hmm.
running the numbers, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's incredibly important.